Okay, welcome to the second video on memory. Specifically, we're looking at the physiology of memory. And this video is looking at the role of the brain in memory formation. And there's three parts of the brain we need to be able to describe in this section. So the temporal lobe, the hippocampus, and the amygdala, which live deep in the temporal lobe. And we're also going to look at the consolidation theory and what that is. All right, so it's obviously important to note that there's no one area of the brain that's important for memory or one area of the brain that stores a specific type of memory. It is about an interaction between different parts of the brain, and different things get stored in different locations. But what we do need to know about specifically is the role of the temporal lobe. And what's or how we get this information is based on research or case studies around people who have damage to areas of the brain. And if obviously people damage specific areas of the brain, we can figure out what those areas, or we can suggest what those areas might then be involved in. So when we're looking at the temporal lobe, if people have brain damage in these areas, we find that they often have amnesia. So amnesia is a temporary, permanent, partial or complete loss of memory. And what that obviously suggests is that the temporal lobe is involved in memory formation. We also have some more data. So people with Alzheimer's disease have temporal lobe shrinkage, and obviously it means it doesn't work as well. And people with Alzheimer's disease often suffer from an inability to access old memories and some difficulty in forming new memories. Again, links in with the idea that the temporal lobe must be involved in these two concepts. The amygdala, so we're looking deep within the temporal lobe here. It's this almond-shaped part on the top of the hippocampus here. And the amygdala has been found to be linked with processing emotions and then emotional memories or memories that have linked emotions with them. So this dot point here is probably really important. So the formation and storage of emotional memories. So we think that it is involved in interpreting information as it comes in and deciding on emotional responses. And then activities that involve emotional arousal often activates the amygdala as well, and adds the emotional component to memory. So those memories that we have that have a more emotional significance, special birthdays or events that have been emotional in any type of way, generally you will find that the amygdala will have been activated here and are responsible for you remembering those emotions for those specific events. Again, most of this information is found out because people have damage to these areas. So if you have damage to the amygdala, we've got no physiological response to danger. So that's that fight or flight response that we've discussed in the past. They have an inability to feel or regulate appropriate emotions. So that obviously links into the emotions that we've said the amygdala is involved in, and decision making. Again, if we don't have any emotions, we can't assess risks or anything like that, because we're impairing our feared response. This sort of relates back to that fight or flight response that's damaged when we damage the amygdala. The other part there I said was the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is, again, deep within the temporal lobe. Again, found to be associated with memory formation and storage. Here we've got, damage to the hippocampus has been found to make it difficult for old information in long-term memory to be accessed, so finding memories. People have difficulty making new memories, so we can't move them from short-term to long-term memory. And so probably wise to just summarize this point here about the hippocampus being crucial to transferring new information from short-term to long-term memory so that we can access it later. If you were going to summarize what the hippocampus does, or what we think the hippocampus does. So to just quickly summarize, remembering we just need to know the role of the temporal lobe. So just a sentence on what it does when we're forming memories, the role of the amygdala, and then the role of the hippocampus. The last thing I want to talk about today is a thing called the consolidation theory. So a couple of terms there. So consolidation is the process by which we store long-term memories. We form long-term memories. And the consolidation theory suggests that when we're learning, or during learning, and in the 30 minutes after learning, that we see changes in the brain cells. Physical changes. In the last video, we talked about memory traces, and having stronger memory traces meant for like greater ability to remember later, and then the physical and chemical changes, more dendrites, more neurotransmitters being released, more axon terminal type things, and more those physical changes occur, and the more dendrites and the more neurotransmitters there are, the stronger the memory trace and the easier it is to remember. So obviously when we're learning things, we want to change the neurons. We want to change the brain cells so that we create strong memory traces so that we can remember the information easily, because that's a word. But this theory suggests that it happens in that 30 minutes afterwards. And if it's interrupted, that we might not be able to lay down those memories as strong, and we can damage or lose that information. And so we have a picture here. So if we've got short-term memory and we're working through things, this theory suggests that we've got those physical changes to consolidate. And it takes approximately 30 minutes for this to happen, for it to be stored in long-term memory. And if we interrupt that, then obviously that information can be lost. Hopefully that information makes sense. The three parts of the brain you need to know about and their roles, and what the consolidation theory is.